Hey, boys, look what I got here.
Hey, where are the white women at?
All right, let's do this. Let's bring my man Warsaw in. What's up, Warsaw?
What up?
All right, I gotta do a couple things. Let me refresh this on my other computer. So I wasn't gonna stream tonight. I was gonna stream last night, could do it. Now I'm here tonight. So here we go. It is what it is, man. So poking around, who was it? Copper Jacket TV. And a couple other people did or were on the story today about the New Mexico governor getting smashed.
It just sounds bad when you say that, by the way.
Oh well, But anyway, and I think it was Copper Jacket also mentioned this case in California about advertising for gun manufacturers. So get out of here. Hitting the wrong buttons again.
So she's implementing a gun ad ban in her state?
No, it was California. I was listening to both of those.
And
I was going to say I wanted to find the arguments for the New Mexico governor, and on Court Listener and a bunch of sites that I use, I couldn't find anything as far as a recording of the arguments. And I know that was in the Ninth Circuit and all that, but I got to poking around and I found the oral arguments for the advertising case in California. So I'm going to try to buzz through these quick tonight because I don't want to do super long show like normal. But I do want everybody to listen to these arguments. And what California was doing is they want to do this nationally, was firearms manufacturers, when they advertise, if that advertisement or if they could say that advertisement was geared towards minors, then they wanted to sue these gun companies. So, well, think about it. There are guns that are marketed for kids. They aren't necessarily marketed to kids, but they're the youth models. Youth model 22s, youth model shotguns, youth model other rifles, to teach kids how to shoot so that they could compete, they could hunt, they could just learn the safety involved with guns. And California was trying to say, hey, if we see an ad that's geared towards children, or we can say it's geared towards children, we're suing you.
What was it? What was it? There was I think it was New York Representative Schumer or some New Yorker that was actually bitching and complaining was it GR-15 or whatever it was for 22s.
Oh yeah, and it was a couple people. Schumer was one.
Yeah.
But that came up in, I know, one hearing in Congress, and it might have come up in another. But yeah, it was nuts because it'd be a youth model rifle and it'd have this little skull on it with a beret or something like that. And they were talking like this is marketed towards school shooters. These kids are going to shoot. And it's like it's a just a semi-automatic rifle. You moron,
dude. Here's the funny thing. You know how many advertisement ads have been going around since the 1940s and 50s, dude? It's been going on since all the time.
Hold on. Let me do something.
For like
yeah. Let's see.
I mean, hell, what was it? Like the Daisy Red Rider for one? It's absolutely ridiculous, man.
Oh, it's nuts. But they really, really wanted to go after these manufacturers. Because they were marketing towards these kids and they're going to make them school shooters. And it was some of the most ridiculous arguments. Here, let me pull one up real quick. will it? It's geez, stupid sites. It was freaking better before. Let me do this. Let me share this tab real fast. I got so many tabs open again. I'm chasing tabs. Present. Let's do screen share. And which one is it? 1940s gun sales. Yep. So I mean, look at this picture. It's the whole family from the Daisy Red Ryder, probably a 22, but the whole family. And the Christmas ads were even better than that. Or this one. Hold on. Let me back that up. So, a father teaching a son to shoot. Looks like he's got one of the Ruger 22s. And I'm just going to flip through a couple others just to see real quick if I can see some of the ads that I've seen before. Oh, what was this one? Colt scope for AR, Gen, whatever, $79. Does it not? It doesn't show the price on the AR itself. But this is 1940s, kids.
I mean, this has been going
That's
on.
that. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
This is that almost that same one where you got the whole family together and stuff. But either way, yeah, these idiots. I can't fit the stupidity into my brain that hey, you can no longer advertise guns towards kids, even though you need to, if you have guns, you need to teach your kids to shoot. You need to teach them firearm safety. Hunter safety is a great way to go in a lot of cases. But there are rifles, right now, like the Cricket. There's a slick little 22 I want to get for my daughter. That's a youth model gun that's advertised that way. It's just it's ridiculous. But we're gonna listen to the oral arguments since I found those, and I am gonna put together a video on this New Mexico stuff. Just because reading some of the articles that I've read today from, of course, leftist sites, it's absolutely hysterical. Actually, why is my phone vibrating here? Okay, it's not. All right, that's cool. All right, so let me do another screen share, and we're going to listen to these oral arguments. Gabber, what's up, brother? Yeah, MC is 100%, man. The firearms youth models and stuff that are offered towards kids, they make it out like it's advertising guns that these kids are going to use. Oh, wrong tab.
Well, what was it? What was it? Last year, I believe it was Nancy Pelosi or one of the politicians. They were bitching, complaining about the skulls, the baby skulls. There's that, and then there's the part where, children can use small assault weapons. Smaller assault weapons. Isn't that big? Fuck you.
These are assault weapons for underage shooters. Man, they're. I can't fit that stupidity in my head. I have these oral arguments. I haven't listened to the whole thing because I didn't pull them up till I got to the house, and then I had kiddos and dinner and all kinds of stuff to do. But let me back this all the way up, and we are going to listen to this. Now, I will say this: there was a case I ran into today that we're going to do a stream on. Damn it! I'm moving the mouse for one thing, and I should be doing it for the other. Let me see if I can. No, because it's not going to be by name. But I'm going to do a stream on it. It involves this dude. He got arrested. He had some felonies, prior felonies, and he may have still been on parole. But apparently, he was actually building some ghost guns and selling them. So it came down to the interstate commerce clause and whether these had moved in interstate commerce. And it was for his sentencing guidelines to make the sentencing more harsh because of the gun issue. It's weird thing. But we are definitely gonna do a stream on that just because it's so interesting. All right, so let's listen to this. So again, this is the Junior Sports Magazines Inc. versus Rob Bonta. And we were expecting some other cases that are going to slap Bonta in the face here shortly. Now, I think they win this, and then believe it in the freaking Ninth Circus. But let's listen to this.
Bill A 2571, the state of California has chosen to ban all firearm industry members and only firearm industry members from engaging in speech that promotes firearm-related products. This includes firearms, ammunition, and all sorts of accessories that can be used in conjunction with the carry or use of a firearm. If that speech constitutes advertising or marketing, that might reasonably appear to be attractive to minors. In doing so, California has enacted a very broad ban on
Could be real.
All right, that's what I was going to say. Thanks for catching that quicker than I did. This is about, of course, the advertising. So this is about not only free speech but commercial speech, is what this actually will come down to. And the little bit that I have listened to, it's really interesting. Let's kick it back off.
pro-Second Amendment speech about items that are entirely lawful to use and possess in California, even by minors. In service of California's purported interest in ferreting out the unlawful sale of firearms to minors, this speech ban is hopelessly over-inclusive while also being under-inclusive, vague, and thus chilling. This fact is fatal to the state's case, no matter what level of scrutiny applies. That is because AB 2571 cannot survive even the slightly more forgiving test for commercial speech under Central Hudson, because AB 2571 is not in any way appropriately tailored to this public legitimate interest that California has put forth. And that is by design, because let's be real, AB 2571 was never really about preventing the unlawful sale of firearms to minors. The legislative history is chock full of references to the primary impetus for the law. That is animus for gun culture and firearm industry members specifically, and a bare desire to thwart the passing down of pro-gun messages to our future generation of shooters. We can look at the excerpts of record starting on page 1028.
I think we ought not necessarily get into that kind of thing if you want to win this case. What I want to get into is, why isn't this commercial speech? Commercial speech is certainly speech that is an advertisement, speech that refers to a particular product. Speaker has an economic motivation in speaking it. It's right out of Hunt versus City of Los Angeles.
Martin, what's up, brother?
This is an easy case for commercial speech.
Obviously, AB 2571 does restrict commercial speech, but appellant's theory of this case is also that it necessarily ties in pure speech, because as my clients, especially junior sports magazines and our Second Amendment organizations like CRPA and SAF, the events that they participate in that involve pure speech, that pure speech is basically paid for by this commercial speech. If if junior sports magazines cannot sell advertising about firearm related products, and we're not just talking about firearms here, we're talking about sights and holsters, portable gun cases, gun safes, for instance, all of those things, then it can't really exist, right? Magazines rely on traditional advertising, including that which is banned by AB 2571, in order to publish pure speech. So as the record shows, Junior Sports Magazine could have done two things, right? It could have decided to stop taking those ads altogether, right? And then because this is a national, this is a magazine with nationwide distribution. If it stopped doing those ads altogether, that's a substantial amount of its revenue, risks shutting down the magazine altogether, or as it chose to do, keep the advertising.
So you're saying mixed motive?
Correct. It necessarily attacks both.
I understand your argument, but the reason I ask you that to begin with, supposing that I suggest that in my review of this, and this is a de novo review now as to whether it's commercial speech or not, I think it's commercial speech.
Okay.
So then at that point, it seems to me that you need to address the other issues that would be outlined in Central Hudson, because to go on about your mixed motive, it's not going to help you much if I'm on a commercial speech path. So what about, is it lawful? Is it truthful?
Yes, Your Honor.
Because then I have to ask those two questions to get to the final three.
That's correct.
And those are legal conclusions, right?
That's correct.
Lawful and truthful.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And it seems to me that there is some lawful sale, or there would be some lawful advertising. And if there's some lawful advertising, then it would be lawful speech.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And it seems to me there'd be some truthful advertising, so therefore we would get to truthful speech. So then we would go to the last three prongs of the Central Hudson test, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then we get to a substantial government interest.
Correct.
Is it a legal conclusion that it is a substantial government interest, or is it a factual conclusion?
It's a good question. I think
The reason I ask it is we're on preliminary injunction here.
correct.
Abuse of discretion analysis. If this is not legal, then how much is it an abuse what the district court did?
I think the response here is twofold. First, I think this is not a strictly legal or factual question, and since it's a mixed legal and factual question,
What case says that?
Oh, I'm not sure, Your Honor.
I don't think
sorry.
there is one.
Regardless, even if appellants concede that this is a substantial government interest, plaintiffs obviously argue, and we think this is this is all pretext. And we can talk more about that later. But even if we concede and the court accepts this interest in preventing the unlawful sale of firearms to minors and preventing gun violence, we would obviously concede that under any test, that's a substantial government interest. It comes down to then whether or not California has shown that the harms it's reciting are real and that the ban directly and materially advances it and is no broader than necessary.
So we're down to, does it directly advance the interest, right?
Correct.
Is that what you're arguing?
It's one of the things.
Is that a legal conclusion?
I think it is.
Or is that a factual determination? Because if it's factual, have an abuse of discretion standard.
That's right. But I don't.
And we have a judge who had the original decision to make, who made that decision, and how much am I bound by what the judge did? If it's an abuse of discretion, then I've got to say he got the law wrong on that, or it was so outlandish, his idea of the facts, it wouldn't hold up. Whereas if it's a legal conclusion, I can substitute my opinion for it. That's why I wanted your good help.
Thank you. I think no matter which way you hold, abuse of discretion or this is a factual question or if it's a legal question, the result is the same, right? Because it would be an abuse of discretion for the court to get the law wrong, right? And
Right,
think
but I don't know that they got the law wrong.
I would think that, respectfully, I think they did get the law wrong.
Okay, what case would suggest that the way they applied that law is wrong?
So the state is pushing a theory that they are allowed to, that they have that the state is allowed to dampen demand for these products, and it bases that theory on a number of cases that the district court adopts in its decision. Cases like Edge Broadcasting, Coyote Publishing, Act Media, and 44 Liquor Mart. These are all cases, of course, that deal with tobacco, brothels, gambling, alcohol, things that minors are not allowed to use or possess at all, as opposed to a case like this one, which is more like Carey v. Population Services, where we're talking about an unconstitutional ban on contraceptive advertising that went to both minors and adults. And so this case, AB 2571, suppresses similarly information about the availability.
Okay. Now, let me say this. One, it's not illegal to sell a gun to a minor unless you are a federally licensed dealer. So, me, if I wanted to sell a gun and this 16-year-old comes up to me and say I know him, say he's a buddy's son, and I go, yeah, man, he's a good shooter. His dad's with him all the time, and he wants to buy a gun for me, and I sell him, even a gun that I built, I sell him. That's legal. Can the government try to give me hell about it right now with the way things are? Yes. But by 18 USC, that's legal for me to do. Unless I'm an FFL. When I'm an FFL, a federally licensed dealer, then I would have to obey, hey, 18 for a long gun, 18 for a long gun, 21 for a handgun. I'd have to, worry about shit like that.
It's just interesting,
It's interesting, and I think we're going to see more of this where, say someone's killed by a dickhead with a gun. I think we're going to see more of this advertising deal get back to that. Because remember, that's how the Sandy Hook parents won the case.
Talk about the one with Remington.
No, the one in the Sandy Hook where the dude went into the school and shot the kids.
That was a decade-old case.
Yeah, well, they went after Remington for their advertising and Colt for their advertising for the Bushmaster. That's how they went after him. They didn't go after him for manufacturing the gun. They went after their advertising. And I think we're going to see more of that. What's up, Vanessa?
And price of constitutionally protected products that minors in California may possess legally under supervision or the permission of a responsible adult. So the court, in relying on cases about tobacco and brothels for speech to minors was an abuse of discretion. It should have been looking at Carey, which when we're talking about contraceptive advertising, which is about a constitutionally protected product that's lawful for minors to use.
So if California changed its laws and said minors, can't use guns for hunting, shooting competition, etc., as it currently allows, would they be allowed to pass a law like this?
They may be able to get through with that under cases like Edge Broadcasting, but then you obviously run into a clear Second Amendment violation. And then we talk about the Second Amendment violation. And then if they're violating the second, then are they violating the first also by doing so?
So then the last one, is it more extensive than necessary? And again, my question is that a legal conclusion? Or is that a factual conclusion? Because my colleagues and I can only stick our nose in. I
still don't get that legal conclusion versus factual conclusion.
The district court in some way.
Our position is that,
and I'm not really telling you where I'm thinking. I just want your view.
I'd have to ask
our view
Uli or somebody like that.
right?
What that.
applying these
differences.
legal
Wish you had a
tests.
case to tell me.
I'm sorry,
I
Mr.
wish you had a case that said the same thing.
She
you're-
has a case right in fucking front of you.
I
Yeah.
think what I'm trying to get at is
He's
the
looking
cases,
more for
the
the
Supreme Court
precedent,
cases
though.
dealing with these types of speech tell you
Better just keep
where
mind
to
fucking
go
her.
with how broad
Yeah.
these restrictions can be on speech when you're dealing with constitutionally protected products and speech to minors and adults. Because remember, AB 2571 is about what might be attractive to children, not speech that
No,
they've
Vanessa,
actually
this is
read
a case
or
out of
speech that is
California.
directed to them. It includes speech to an adult like myself who might be willing to look into buying a firearm related product for my minor daughter to use under my watchful eye in accordance with California's laws. And she's never seen the speech, but because it's maybe a pink handgun with a Hello Kitty attached to it, that speech to me as an adult is illegal under AB 2571. And I think, excuse me, and I think because like just the very looking at the law on its face, we can see that it targets speech that's directed not just at children, but as adults who might be purchasing firearms for themselves, purchasing them for their minor children, or even to speech for children about firearms they may use legally or purchase when they become adults. I think the case law is very clear that this is too broad. In all applications, this law is too broad to survive the Central Hudson test. I also want to talk a little bit about plaintiffs' equal protection claim, right? We're looking at a case of a law that was obviously driven by animus for the firearm industry. With this, while they have a public-facing interest, the state claims, in preventing the unlawful possession.
Yeah, brother, you are right. They're trying to basically work a lot of this through the FCC. But yeah, Vanessa, this is out of California. What was it again? It was
Ninth Circuit.
yes, well, it's Ninth Circuit, but it was Junior Sports Magazine versus Rob Bonta. Is this case? But yeah, the what you're talking about is the Bushmaster case in Connecticut where they went after him for the advertising. What's up, Waffle? All right, let's get back to this.
Possession and purchase of firearms by minors. We can see in the legislative history the real impetus was this animus. There's lots of talk about in the legislative documents about the problem of indoctrinating our future generations into the gun culture. And then you have exemptions
if we're on equal protection, who's the protected class?
This is not a case about a protected class, Your Honor. This is about one of two things. This is an equal protection claim about discrimination in the.
But what
use of-
class is not protected equally?
Oh
This
my
is
God,
about
dude.
Why is it an
discrimination.
equal protection class?
An equal protection claim based on the exercise of a fundamental right or based on animus driven toward an identifiable group. In this case, obviously, is the firearm, what do they call them? Firearm industry members. And because there's.
To me, that if we're going to go back to equal protection, and I'm not trying to avoid it, I'm just trying to say if we're really going to say it's a commercial transaction, we don't really need to talk about an equal protection argument, do we?
If Your Honor would.
That would elevate it to strict scrutiny. That's the reason you're coming back to that argument.
That's respectfully.
Yes, because anything with the Second Amendment
on it being
should be
about
strict
animus based
scrutiny.
on disdain for the firearms industry, that's rational.
The moment they
basis.
mention
And
scrutiny,
because
they're
it's
bringing up the
animus,
old days
there's
of
no.
Heller.
Well, I mean, it's they're trying to get to a balancing test,
Which is forbidden.
Yeah, so that they can do their magic and say, well, the state's got a bigger interest here, is where he's trying to go.
Yep,
But
that was struck down.
But at the same time, he's kind of given her the roadmap to win the argument. And I haven't figured out which part he lands on, whether he's just trying to push it through to go to the balancing test so that he can decide the way he wants, or whether he's actually telling her, look, you need to argue this way to win this case. because he said something similar to that at the start.
So in other words, he's kind of giving her the secrets to guide her.
Yeah. That's almost what it sounds like. Because when he started the argument, he was like, "You need to stay on this basis because if you to win, you need to stay on this basis." So it kind of sounds like that to me.
And you can't blame her; she's kind of
If
all
we're
nervous.
going on a preliminary.
Oh, she's holding her
injunction we
own.
talked about, it seems to me
You got to remember, and I could look on here real quick, but I'd have to jump off this. You got to remember, this says Firearms Policy Coalition was involved in this. I think the Second Amendment Foundation. There were a couple of groups involved in this suit. That were basically funding the fight.
saying you're going to win on this, so we would have met the first part of the preliminary.
Did Crow sneak in? What's up, Crow?
In that, seems like you got a good case.
Abigail, what's up, sis?
Irreparable harm. What irreparable harm is there?
Under an equal protection analysis, Your Honor?
No.
On any of them.
I'm
Obviously.
back to commercial speech.
Okay, sorry. Obviously, the direct and most irreparable harm, of course, is the chilling of speech. The record shows through declarations that my clients have stopped engaging in all manner of
There
speech.
is no constitutional issue, then no harm. But if there is, then it's even under commercial speech, you would have your harm, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
How about a balance of equities?
Is this the
Balance of
General?
equities, I think, obviously, because
What was that?
Is this the Attorney General
No. This is one arguing for the plaintiffs here.
now? Okay, I was wondering if this was over to the Attorney
yeah.
General.
Yeah, she's the one arguing for the plaintiffs here. And see, it sounds like right there he's trying to direct her towards what she needs to argue to win the case again.
Mm-hmm.
This is can't remember whether I heard this part earlier because I just kind of breezed through this before I said fuck it and decided to go live real fast.
we're talking. If it's a constitutional violation of fundamental rights, then the balance of equities is going to naturally fall on the
Too
side
many
of
choices. 40 cal for the win,
What
baby.
if it's just a mere commercial speech?
If it's mere commercial, I think it's still true because even if it's commercial speech, we're still talking about protected First Amendment rights, right? If you're violating the First Amendment based on quote unquote just commercial speech, it's still violating the First Amendment.
What when we win a balance of equities, we say
Balance of equities.
we act to preserve the status quo and minimize harm. Isn't that what we do?
Yes, and what is interesting about that, Your Honor, is that we were trying to keep the status quo. The legislature chose to adopt this as an urgency measure that went into effect immediately as Governor Newsom signed it. Like if it had gone through the normal process where it would have taken until January 1st or perhaps July 1st, we would have had the time and the status quo never would have changed. Really, this status quo that we sit in right now only exists because it went as an urgency measure. It didn't need to. There was really no reason for it to take that tact, and we could have been preserving a status quo where the law didn't exist. And I would also add,
Go ahead.
I would also add that preserving a status quo that silences my clients would not be just.
And as to the public interest.
As to the public interest, again, if we're speaking about a violation of the First Amendment, even if we're talking about commercial speech, I think the public interest is on the side very clearly of protecting constitutional fundamental rights and that the public interest would fall on our side. And I would also say that if the court rules with appellants and grants this MPI, see some massive harm to the state, because enforcing unconstitutional laws doesn't harm the state naturally, but also because we're talking about an interest that the state has in preventing gun violence that they haven't really shown is directly linked to this advertising that they're trying to ban. Unless the court has other questions, I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Gabrielle Boutin on behalf of Attorney General Rob Bonta. This is an appeal from an order denying a motion for preliminary injunction. Such orders are only subject to reversal for abuse of discretion. Here, there was no abuse of discretion in the district court's ruling. Section 22949.80 is a narrow measure that restricts only advertisements for defined firearm products that are directed at children. The statute regulates only commercial speech, and it does not regulate non-commercial political speech related to firearms. As a result, under the applicable Supreme Court and Ninth Circuit precedents, the statute is subject to central Hudson scrutiny, which it satisfies. The district court properly applied this legal standard. We therefore ask this court to affirm the district court's order denying the preliminary injunction. With that, I would be happy to respond to any questions that the panel may have.
How does this law directly advance the state's goal here? Maybe more specifically, is there any evidence that a minor has unlawfully purchased a gun in California?
I think this actually might relate a little bit to Judge Smith's questions, and because it has to do with what type of review are we doing?
Before you get to that, I mean, is there anything in the record that shows in the state of California a minor has unlawfully purchased a firearm?
There is not evidence in the record of that.
This
Fit this into
asinine.
your head.
This
Yeah.
asinine.
Fit this into your head. Their argument is these gun dealers are marketing towards children. Children are getting firearms and they're killing, school shootings and shit. But she can't cite a single case where an FFL, rightfully so, sold a gun to a minor.
And for fuck's sake, this whole law was implemented for political reasons. It was not for fucking factual reasons.
No. I mean, they're really doing this so that, say, Glock advertises their new gun. Some kid goes and shoots someone with a Glock. They find the Glock at the scene. They pick it up and go, "Oh shit, this is a Glock. That's what killed that kid. We got to go after the freaking Glock because they had an advertisement for a gun that could appeal to a kid." Oh God, that makes my fucking head hurt going through that logic.
That specific incident. However, the case law, such as in Edge Broadcasting by the Supreme Court, discuss this issue of, do there have to be specific incidences in the past record of the incident happening? So in that case, it had to do with restricting radio ads for buying lottery tickets, and the court upheld that law. And the court talked about how certainly there was no discussion of evidence in the record of that having happened before, someone being stimulated to buy a lottery ad, buy a radio advertisement. And the court also talked about how it's permissible it is permissible under central Hudson scrutiny for the legislature to take action with the thought that it will benefit the public at large, or there will be a general effect.
Where's my hammer?
And it doesn't.
Where's my hammer? I got to get that thought out of my head. Where'd my hammer go?
So what
Dude,
is,
give me some.
I'm gonna whack myself dead in the head.
not
with
so
this.
much about minors unlawfully buying guns because of advertisements? So is it on the theory that lawful, truthful advertisements about guns that may be reasonably attractive to minors stokes demand for guns among minors, or increases gun violence among minors?
The idea is that these ads, I want to get my language correctly because it sounds like you were trying to get some specificity, but it's that the ads lead to minors' illegal acquisition and illegal use of firearms. And the case law supports this idea.
I gotta pause for a second.
Yeah.
BV, have you put out any videos in the last little while? Because if you have, I'm not getting alerts for it. When I subbed to you not too long back, BV's got a channel. BV, you got a wrench, man. Throw it in the chat. But he doing the Matchbox cars and stuff, and I mean, really cool, man. Just to freaking chill out and watch something. But I haven't been getting alerts for it, and I just wanted to say that.
No, she talks about how ads are implemented into kids, for wanting to do school shootings and shit. Motherfucker, You know what actually makes kids go after do violent things?
Leftist education.
Oh, that, but also rap culture, gang culture, the music industry.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about the majority of shootings, which are gang related, yeah,
And look
it's
at
exactly what leads to it.
and how many kids as young as 13 or 14 years old are picking up Glocks with scraps off serial numbers from their gang members and shit.
Oh yeah,
What the fucking
well, they use these young kids as shooters because if that kid gets caught killing somebody, they're not going to serve life. They're going to be, maybe till they're 18, then they're going to be back out on the street.
technically they're like child soldiers in a sense.
Oh yeah, I mean it's very much like what child soldiers end up in Africa and stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
and,
very close to that.
and they're expendable, dude. You think those members care about them?
Oh no, man! But they drill somebody or they drill a couple people. They finally get caught. They go to prison. When they get out, they're gang heroes at that point.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact, depending on which prison they go to, they've done some work while they were there too.
Yeah. No, but the idea that some civilian out of school sees a gun ad, goes in the store and, legally purchases a firearm and just shoots up the whole fucking school. That's all bullshit.
Yeah, oh, it's so much horseshit. It isn't even funny. But hey, it's the shit we deal with now. I mean, at least this one's gone through the courts. It seems like pretty fast. Because I remember when they started this shit, and it wasn't too long back.
Now,
Dampening that.
one more thing. Isn't it also a violation of PLACA?
The
federal
well,
law.
that is how the Connecticut lawsuit got around PLACA, because PLACA, the Legal Protection in Arms Act or whatever it is, it didn't mention anything about the advertising. So they didn't go after them for manufacturing the firearm, because that's basically what PLACA protects. They went after them because they said the advertising was basically geared towards making people think that like military weapons were cool, or that military weapons would kill a whole lot of people at one time. That's what they went after them for. So it's funny the line that they ride. And maybe I should have just gone to fucking law school, but I'd probably rather start a shotgun.
Demand by restricting advertisements. Again, there's Edge Broadcasting. There's the Lorillard case, which has to do with restrictions on advertising.
Could minors misuse, unfortunately, lots of things, right? Including cars. Could California pass a law that banned advertising of vehicles aimed at minors? Be under the idea that some minors misuse cars, and therefore we're just going to ban all advertising of vehicles that might be geared towards minors. Could they do that?
So my understanding of your question is the idea would be that the consequences, the harm that is trying to be alleviated is car crash fatalities and injuries caused by minors in particular. I assume that.
No,
that
just
would be kind of
just assume. I think that minors misuse cars sometimes. I have children, and I think that's true.
If we're talking about the direct advancement prong of Central Hudson, I think it may pass that. I think.
But what about the overbreadth?
That's where I think that could possibly be an issue, and I think why.
Why would that not be similarly true here? Because if you look in. Legislature actually said that they had a compelling interest in ensuring the minors do not possess these dangerous weapons. But the legislature didn't even seem to be targeted necessarily, or at least they were inconsistent.
Hey, BV, man, I went for about the last month or so and didn't do any videos or anything. So, man, don't worry about that shit, brother.
About whether they were targeting illegal possession, or you agree that you can have lawful possession as a minor,
yes.
And yes. So they seem to be just targeting lawful possession, at least in part. At least there's some language to that, and I can understand where this is it. But like, even assuming the legislature had only been wanting to target unlawful possession, but had something that says you can't advertise it at all, and it
true that, BV,
it bleeds over into lawful possession. Why is that not a problem? It seems like it would be with cars or
Well,
soft drinks or any number of
Well, I think there are
violent video games.
First, to go to the initial part of your question, even if there is language about possession generally, their concerns were about violence caused when the acquisition or the possession was illegal. So
Virginia,
school shooters,
what's
for
up, brother?
example,
Well, they
using
have two
acts-
concerns. I'm going to hold you to their language a little bit. There's an and here, and they have a compelling interest in ensuring that they don't possess them. They didn't say illegal. They said do not possess. And then they also in protecting citizens, especially minors, from gun violence. So, but those were independent like concerns. It seems like you're kind of merging the two together, and you're saying that it's a possession, that it's only possession that results in gun violence. But that's not what they said.
Well, Your Honor, I think the statute speaks to that issue by the fact that there is an exception in the statute for activities in which
Cool
youth
deal,
are
Minute
using
Man.
firearms legally.
Be safe
which
while
has to
you're
do with
moving, bro.
programs for education, hunting, shooting. So certainly that provision would be at odds
If you just,
for trying
if you
to.
just advertise a 22 Henry lever action rifle, which I think would be legal in California for, it looks like an old Western gun kind of, for with a kid, because it's a 22 caliber. I think that would be illegal under this. You know, right? You would agree, like if it doesn't have anything to do with like trying to promote safety or trying to promote some kind of group or something, it would be illegal. Has a picture of a young child hunting rabbits with a 22 rifle or something like that, which would not be illegal necessarily.
That's right, Your Honor.
But it would, their hunting would not be illegal, but the advertisement would be, correct?
Well, I think you would have to look at the factors, and you'd have to look at the very specific ad. The factors get pretty specific in terms of a lot of other issues other than just the main subject of the ad.
So is your argument, just to be clear, is your argument that this only reaches advertisements that are asking, that are they're
Cool deal, brother.
intentionally encouraging children to engage in illicit, illegal violence? I don't think that's right.
No, no.
So, I mean, so are you even disagree that there, is your position that you can't, that this, do you disagree that this would cover advertising firearms to minors where you're just advertising the firearm? I mean, there's instances where this would cover, you're saying like, we have to look at the factors, et cetera, but you do agree that like it would actually cover advertising something to a minor where the minor, if the minor respond to that advertisement, the minor would be engaging in a lawful activity, say rabbit hunting with.
Again, I think it depends on the specific ad that you're looking at, but I think it is possible that that may be the case in certain instances. But my response to that would be that a perfect fit is not required. Yes, you look to over-inclusiveness and under-inclusiveness, but this is not strict scrutiny, and it only has to be a reasonable fit, which means there could be some over.
Boy, these leftists, man, they hate strict
in
scrutiny.
Edge broadcasting, part of the claim was that it was over-inclusive because there were people who would hear the radio broadcast that were in states in which lotteries were legal. And that was not the intent of the statute, but the court still said the court still found there to be a reasonable fit. In the tobacco advertising cases, again, there were regulations that were upheld that were also targeted at adults, so legal behavior, whether it be giving out samples, whether it be keeping the products behind the counter. But so there is over-inclusiveness that is allowed in these cases under Central Hudson review. So there will be certain cases that may be borderline in terms of, is it a fit for the interest? But that doesn't mean that the law should not be upheld.
So if there was an advertisement that said a hunting rifle, it has less recoil, so it's young minor hunters, it would be easier for them to use to go hunting. If there was an advertisement like that in junior sports magazine, Sportsman magazine, would that be unlawful under this law?
Again, I think you'd have to look at the totality of the circumstances. I think it's possible that could be one consideration.
Pause for a second.
Yep. Go
No,
ahead,
she's
brother.
not answering directly. She's just fucking like veering off course what he asked.
If you listen to these guys, the ones that argue for the gun control, 99% of the time they will not answer the question
Yes.
directly. They won't just directly address it, give a straight answer. It's always this roundabout where they swerve around and then they go to another subject and they swerve back around. It's ridiculous.
Answer the fucking question.
Yeah.
That the court undertook, but so if you said that, so I think if there were aspects of the ad that looked like they were supposed to appeal to a child audience, that the child was supposed to read that,
the gun.
and
This
yes,
says these guns
then
are
yes,
better
I
for
think
minors.
it would fall under that. But I think there could also be certain aspects of the ad in terms of the context, the design,
Can't she's swerving all over
the
the
text
room.
itself that made it more clear that it was that made it not attractive to a child. So I mean, I think I think there's certain circumstances where there may be something directed.
It says at the bottom of it, this is an advertisement for children because they're hunting with their parents, and following the laws because their lawyers got involved and following the laws because we think this gun will be really good for, having less recoil and help you to have better aim. So that, and just to push back on, the problem is like, it almost sounds like, if you're a fire industry lawyer, you keep saying, well, you have to look at all the content. I mean, in order to engage in this speech, you're kind of, the way you're presenting it, you're out there and you have no idea what the result's going to be. I'm not sure it's actually as vague as you say. I think it may be actually more clear that it does ban it, but even assuming it's as vague as you say, isn't that a problem too?
No, I don't think, and I didn't mean to give that impression. It's difficult to discuss hypotheticals when there are several factors and it is a totality of the circumstances test. But I think when we talk about vagueness,
Do this. Let me pause this for a sec. Where's it at? Which tab? So what they're saying is things like this would be completely illegal and they could sue the manufacturer. Compact and youth firearms. And then they show a bunch of, youth firearms. They're saying all of this would be illegal.
I hate to say this, Coop, but this is Canadian style bullshit.
Dude, it is 100%.
With respect to vagueness, I mean, first of all, what it sounds like you're discussing is a fair notice issue with the factors. And my first response to that would be that's not an argument that the plaintiffs made. They discussed arbitrary.
I'm not actually super interested in vagueness. I'm just saying that you are really emphasizing the vagueness of the statute in order to get away from our hypotheticals, and that seems to work against you.
I certainly don't mean to do that. I mean, the standard is whether it is attractive to a child, and it certainly is the case that in certain circumstances, such as if there's a statement in there that is meant to speak directly to a child, yes, that probably, perhaps certainly would fall under the statute.
You admit, so to get away from hypotheticals, if you were advertising a firearm and you're clearly trying to advertise it to a child audience for a clearly lawful purpose, let's just say those two things, then you acknowledge that this would cover some of those instances.
It would, and part of that is because the statute does also cover advertisements that are designed or intended to be attractive to children. So obviously, a lot of these situations would be covered under those provisions.
Yeah, like
and again, I think
model rifles.
You don't have to have a perfect fit because it's not strict scrutiny that's involved. It's okay that there are going to be some circumstances in which there could be. One could argue it's more about legal use by a child, and it's perhaps less likely to cause the results that the legislature is concerned about.
I've let my colleagues talk because they didn't say much when the other counsel was up, so I thought they ought to have a chance to get on the record here. I want to come back to my questions. Seems to me this is a preliminary injunction. I've got to think about 4 questions, very, very, very difficult. And if this is commercial speech, and that's your argument, they argue higher scrutiny because that'd be better for them. But if we go with your argument about commercial speech, we're not in the higher scrutiny. Seems to me then is it lawful? I can't find that this is not lawful. It bans lawful speech. Ban speech that could be made for lawful purposes. So is it lawful is met. Is it misleading? Frankly, truthful, it seems to me it bans truthful speech. So at that point, we're at the 3 different tests that I have to do in order to meet the commercial speech test. So the first one is, does it directly advance California's interests? Is that a legal question?
I don't know of a case on point with that question.
Well, I'll
However,
tell you, there is one. It is Safari Club, and it is Alliance for Wild Rockies versus Cottrell. They both say they're legal questions. And the reason I said that is because that fashions our review. If it were
It sounds like
like a
he's slapping
jury
the shit out of her
making a
right now.
determination based on
Not
the
slapping
law,
the shit out of her. I think
then it would be
kicking the
abuse
shit
of
out of her.
discretion,
It might be.
hard standard to meet. But where it's a
He knows it's full of
legal
bullshit.
conclusion, we can look at this law and see if it really goes where it's supposed to go. And that's why I thought it was interesting how you answered my colleagues' questions, because they're really looking at it. Does it really advance California's interest? And that's the worry we have in this situation, if we're to make that determination. So what's your best argument about that?
I think you have to look at the way that courts review these cases and the decisions
I
themselves.
am. That's
Right,
what I'm
yeah,
trying
and
to
so-
bring
and
to
this
your
is-
attention.
Sure, and I'm trying, and I'd like to explain our position on how that's been done. I don't disagree per se that it's a legal question, but the way that the courts review these is not to take factual evidence, but they look at the legislature's decisions, what they base it on.
Yeah, why pay attention to the factual evidence?
It means you're ignoring the United States Supreme Court and saying, go fuck yourself. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, they're ignoring all of that, and they're saying that.
So again, Edge Broadcasting, they found they did not have evidence ahead of time about whether these radio ads would affect purchasing lottery tickets. In the educational media versus Swecker case, there was not factual evidence introduced during the record in the district court about whether advertisements for alcohol in college publications would affect the underage drinking of the students. That's not how the courts review these cases.
The problem that I have with this is that it is absolutely a right that's granted by the Constitution to have advertising. Right
And
to have
guns.
commercial speech. And we're supposed to deal with that as if you're taking that speech away, and I'm supposed to find pretty clearly, it seems, that it advances California's interest, that there isn't some other thing on the books that would say it doesn't advance California's interest at all. And that's my worry about this particular instance. If we go to the next, not more extensive than necessary, how can you say this is not more extensive than necessary?
Well, I think that is the technical term of the prong, but I think the courts have made clear in the Fox case, and this court, I think, made clear in Whiting.
You cite to get to those, the alcohol, tobacco, all that kind of stuff, but we're not citing something that is dead on a constitutional right to use.
Yeah, and she's talking about everything else, but the right to own arms is a constitutional right.
And it's protected.
I will guarantee you, at the time of the founding, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old could go buy a goddamn gun.
It was a musket. You could go up and get a musket.
Yeah.
And that was protected under the First Amendment.
I mean, it's straight insanity. That's one of the reasons, that we're listening to it. But it's funny to me. It really sounds like the Ninth Circuit, these judges in the Ninth Circuit of all circuits, because the Ninth Circuit is one of the worst when it comes to any sort of rights. It's funny to me that these judges sound like they are just smacking the shit out of the state of California. I mean, if I was Rob Bonta, I'd be in my fucking cry closet when I heard this shit.
Who's a gun?
Yes, Your Honor, but I think it is commercial speech.
Can I add to that? Because this really gets to sort of, even putting aside that a constitutional right, to have a gun, I think you keep citing the, smoking or or alcohol or, these. But I mean, I think it's intuitive. There's a certain, maybe the reason that you don't have courts looking, it's intuitive that in those contexts that, if you put up an advertisement in the school saying buy your Camels across the street, buy your Camel cigarettes across the street, that you're going to increase demand. At least for me, it's not at all intuitive. I mean, junior sports, I've never heard of the magazine before. It's not intuitive to me that advertising is even driving hardly any of the youthful demand, which is unfortunate for junior sports magazine, I assume. But what is driving youthful demand? We don't have time, so I'll tell you. I mean, what's driving youthful demand
and
is
drugs,
movies and video games and Call of Duty and stuff. That's what. So what do I do with the fact that it just seems like this law is like this weird law.
Martin mentioned video games earlier in the chat.
Whereas if you're trying to ban
100%.
cigarettes in school, cigarette advertisements in school or cigarette advertisement, whatever, that it seems to have a lot more direct relationship. This law is really missing a direct relationship, it seems like.
Your Honor, I would say that you could say the same thing as far as seeing the products used in movies and video games and other places about smoking prior to a lot of the laws that have come out. Certainly these days, with regard to alcohol, you see that a lot of places. I think no one to dispute there are a lot of products that advertising plays a role and other influences play a role. And I believe it's Edge Broadcasting that talks about it doesn't have to be the one solution that takes care of everything, but if it contributes to help advancing the government interest.
You can do things piecemeal because after all, they can only do. But I thought that would be your answer. But the problem with that answer is that what do we do if I think that 99% of demand for some product is driven by something entirely different, and there's really hardly any demand being driven by the thing that's actually being banned here. And then you couple that with the fact that the legislature,
Virginia, Ninth Circuit,
the legislature both said in the law itself, but also in legislative history, that seems like it's really trying to, it's trying to even, it actually is targeting lawful activity. Like it actually wants to target lawful activity, not just unlawful activity.
I disagree with the statement that it's trying to target lawful activity.
But you agree that the legislature said that? Like it said that it wants.
Yeah.
Woman, you have 3 fucking judges telling you that they're all in favor against you. Listen to them. They have more power and authority over you, and they disagree with your fucking view. Fuck you.
Oh, she's still going to fight tooth and nail for it.
Wanted to, the language about possess. It didn't say unlawful possession, but it just wanted to go after possession possession of a firearm by minors.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of where in the legislative record that statement's made.
All right. It's in excerpts of record 1018. It says, when they enacted it with intent to further restrict the marketing and advertisement of firearms to minors and to advance the compelling interest in ensuring that minors do not possess these dangerous weapons.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, without seeing.
That is her argument. That's part of what is in her documents. And she doesn't even fuck me right. I mean, bitch, read this shit, please.
In the context of that, I don't dispute that that's in the record. And I trust you that's in the legislative record, but I don't dispute it's in whatever report or statement that you stated it's in, but I don't know what, I can't concede that it was stated in a context that I'm unaware of.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So it should be the rebuttal now. So the appellate's lawyer's getting back up.
I'd just like to make 3 very brief points in response to some of the questioning that I just heard and some of the questions that came up earlier. Thank you, Your Honor, for pointing out Safari Club and Cottrell. I think appellants would also point to Laura Lard as helpful in to this court in applying a legal standard to the Central Hudson tailoring analysis. Also, with regard to I'm not trying to bring this back into strict scrutiny, but I would like to make a quick point about the fact that the things that I kept hearing my colleagues speak about with regard to it's a totality of the circumstances test. You have to look at every single advertisement to determine whether or not it violates the law. That shows you very clearly that this is content-based, and when it's content-based, and worse yet, viewpoint discriminatory like this law is, we should be using a straightforward First Amendment
Oh,
strict
too many
scrutiny
choices.
analysis,
You know
and
the
under
left
that,
hates
we
strict
definitely
scrutiny,
win.
man.
But again, my third point is obviously
That
that when we
forces
go to
them to
Central Texan, we're not just talking about
strict
some
scrutiny forces
reasonable
them into
fit,
factual
willy-nilly.
arguments,
This
and they
has to be
can't win
narrowly
on factual
tailored.
arguments.
And a district court decision in Tracy Rifle was really clear in a First Amendment case sort of like this one. When the state has access to tools to directly attack the harm they're speaking of, here, gun violence, for instance, they have to resort to those and not go to speech indirectly to dampen demand. What we can't do, what the state cannot do, is ban this non-misleading speech about the availability of legal products. And this is speech, again, directed both to minors and adults. In closing, it is not a crime to encourage young people to engage in the shooting sports. And the government cannot, in line with the First Amendment, punish the firearms industry, and only the firearms industry, for encouraging young people to shoot with legal firearms that come in sizes appropriate to their size. This is a violation of the First Amendment, and this court should not be shy to overturn the district court's decision. Thank you.
Thank you to both for the very helpful argument. The case has been submitted.
So that was the case, and this happened. I think today.
I don't think so.
It was It was either today or yesterday when this happened.
Last I saw this case was like what, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, but this was the 3, 4, 5 weeks ago when I looked at this. They were all still submitting documents. All the supporting stuff. The appellates were putting in their documents, and the state was putting in theirs. I'll have to look at the date exactly, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this happened within the last couple days.
Yep.
So that was it. I wanted everybody to hear that and listen to it, and realize that this is the sort of thing that the left is going to continue to do. Even if they get slapped in California, you can bet more states are going to go after the advertising. And I know, I have to look it up. I'm pretty sure, I'll say that, I'm pretty sure that there are already a couple of bills federally to go after gun companies for their advertising. And again, it's going to be a situation where either, depending on how they go, it will be a situation where a Glock is used in a crime to kill somebody and they find the family and the family sues, or it's going to be some kid does something with a gun and, it was advertised towards children. We're going to go after their advertising, and they'll go that way. So it's going to be interesting to watch, and hopefully I catch it when this opinion actually comes out, because it really sounds, and it's amazing, it really sounds like the judges were going after them. Like, this is a completely shit argument. So we'll see.
There's even a gun ad ban in Illinois State. I know JB Burgermeister passed.
Yeah. That's going to be another battleground, as far as like,
it's already got a lot.
Yeah.
It's already got, by the way.
Yeah, that's that's Seventh Circuit. And I know there's a couple of cases jammed up in there now. I tried to look for anything as far as oral arguments with the stuff in New Mexico. But I couldn't. I don't know whether that was just all paperwork and no oral argument or what, but I couldn't find the oral argument for that.
No,
take it easy, brother. I'm about to sign off too, man. I'm gonna try to get cleaned up and get to sleep at a half-ass decent time tonight.
Last time I checked, wasn't there a case in the Seventh Circuit? There was some other gun case there. It was some people.
Yeah, well, you still got it in the Seventh Circuit. You sent me the arguments for it too, but there's the assault weapon ban in the
Right,
Seventh
that one.
Circuit. And
There was some guy that got caught with use of a firearm he pulled out of his pocket, and he caught him on that for
yeah, there's a couple. And I've got them downloaded. I've got them, ready to go. And I don't know. Hopefully, in the next few days, I can do them. Matter of fact, well, I mean, one of the reasons I went ahead and went live tonight is because Polite Society wasn't on. At least I didn't see Paul come on. I think
they were on.
Were they on?
Yeah, they were on live.
Man, it's fucking shit's pissed me off because I looked to see whether he was going to go live, and then even went to his page to see because I wasn't getting the alert for it. So, but anyway, it'll be all right. I'll catch up on Polite Society, more than likely tomorrow. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I wanted to share these arguments with you guys so you guys can see what the left is trying to do is, to do more to basically chip away at our rights.
And there's too, because mind you, they're also encroaching themselves in a corner as well.
Oh yeah, eventually, if you use their logic on the firearms ads and stuff like that, yeah, they're actually going to turn around and back themselves into a corner because there's going to be a lot of stuff that they advertise that is could be detrimental.
No, but like I was going to point out, their gun rights is like ours, and the moment they keep getting rid of their own gun rights, it's going to backfire on them too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, which we saw that with the New Mexico governor trying to do her bullshit, and even every town in David Hall and Ted Lieu were like, no, you can't do that. So
I like to point out though, if you subscribe to Legally Armed America, David Hall copy and pasted people's comments. He wasn't being looked at.
Mm-hmm. Which, to be honest, to tell you this, I don't know whether he copy and pasted that or whether they all just have that same programming and they spit up the same horse shit. And that's honest. I mean, because, God knows they all get their information from every town and all that. So they just download it, puke it back up.
No, David Hogg needs to go to a communist state and realize, hey, you know what? This is what happens when you give up your gun rights.
Oh, dude, that little skinny son bitch, he'd be damn teabagging people, and he'd love it.
What, you go to communist China?
Yeah. He'd be little rocketing man the whole way. Because he's just built that way. I'm sorry. He really is. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here, guys. As usual, I love all you guys. Keep that thing on you at all times. You perps be cool, and I'm out. Warsaw, have a good night, brother. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, man. Hey, thanks for the invite.
All right, brother. Anytime.